Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
We did not engage in conflict that was out of line with our mission.
Is it disloyalty? Is it sedition? Is it treason to oppose the hands of tyranny? Never!
I will never send troops anywhere on a mission of that kind without telling them that if somebody shoots at them, they can darn well shoot back.
I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty! Oh, give me death!
A dark cloud is finally lifting across the world as U.S. military intelligence and their global partners are destroying the deep state criminal power structure that has ruled over our planet for hundreds of years.
We are free with the God-given right, and we shall not yield that right to any power on earth.
Hi, I'm Scott McKay. The world is at, and I am your host on The Tipping Point on Revolution Radio, where every Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we bring you the latest in this ensuing takedown of this global criminal empire.
That's an image of strength.
You'll get the raw, hard truth here on The Tipping Point. So come join us Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern in Studio B at revolution.radio.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
See how the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2. It's not you. It's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David Dubine, creator of the Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age 2015 to 2035 video series. And I do welcome you this evening. First program of the year. Excited, setting goals, getting ready for surviving. Cold weather crop loss, yeah, that's one thing to contend with. Fertilizer shortage and now herbicide shortages. They're going to reduce yields by the bushel because there are going to be so many weeds growing in the field competing with the plants that they're trying to grow. So, where does this take us for 2022? I don't know. We're going to have a great program tonight. I got with me right here, Ransom Godwin, 420 TV, Freedomist Films. You can see the world kind of spinning out of control. You see where it's going and how quickly things can get topsy-turvy if prices rise. Kazakhstan, exactly. Fuel prices double, triple. Cooking fuel, electricities, and suddenly there's a new government. Now, what happens if that happens in the States? What if your food price doubles, triples? What's going to happen? We see the repeats in history so cleanly. Ransom, I'm glad you're joining me tonight. I did want to discuss the herbicide shortages in here and how they're going to try to contain or not these crop losses and reductions from the weather, and also with the, I guess, less chemical availability for us to continue agriculture as we understand it. And I think I just lost Ransom off the call there. Oh, no, he's back. So, Ransom, yeah, things are looking heated here. I was at the farm co-op myself. Going to head back on Saturday because we're getting iced in. We had an ice storm today, East Coast and Tennessee. Everything is so icy, and the temperature's dropping, and it's getting just crystallized everywhere, even on the asphalt, on the roads. So Saturday, I'll head on to the co-op, take a look, and Happy New Year 2022. Here we go. It's going to be a rip-roaring, remembering kind of year.
Absolutely. I was actually just before we came on watching your last video off your channel where you were talking about 40% decreases in food output. I was really curious. I know we talk a lot about it and we go over it, but what's the real meat and potatoes? Like, are people really going to see it on the shelf this year in 2022 that things have skyrocketed? I mean, I've already seen across the board the prices go up. That's not in question, but I mean, is it going to go into where families are wondering how they're going to feed themselves? And then how long do you think they'll cry to the government for stimuluses and emergency programs to get us through this pandemic and, and get us through the shortages and supply chain issues that seem to be completely manufactured across the board, set up for whatever purpose they're about to show us. And I'm sure you saw the FEMA planning guidance response nuclear detonation little thing they had today, actually, of all times. And it's funny because yesterday I was on the internet and everyone was going nuts about this Russian rocket that put out a satellite, and the satellite had an unstable orbit, and people were, postulating on where it might land, and other people were, thinking it was a joke and that it's not real and all of this other stuff. And it's funny that just last week we were talking about things raining down from the sky. And I've recently been reading about all of these, iron core asteroids that have hit in recent times. There was one that was found in Mexico. I'm not sure when it exactly hit the ground. I think they were saying it was in 1804, and this had to have been a super, explosion and something to behold, but I don't think there was any people around to actually see it. It was kind of like the Tunguska incident where something blew up over everything and no one even knew what it was. And now we're in a technological time, and I kind of bring back last week, and it kind of circles. I thought it was so ironic that we were really kind of deep into this idea of war gamed out nuclear I'm going to say mind control experiments because, like I said, I was looking at all of those Chinese islands they're making, and it just reminded me of our conversation about the Bikini Islands and all of these things, and that you could do all of this. And now it looks like the government is right on that exact line of thinking. And then they put it today trying to promote what I'm calling a fable of insurrection. If you, if you know what I'm talking about, it's a complete joke that they're trying to manufacture a propaganda campaign from that to scare Americans into thinking there's, American against American, when all that's happening really is that we're being governed into oblivion.
I guess I'll answer your questions. Yes, forever, and start to grow food. Yeah, it'll be working like this. So what Ransom was referencing about the video that I'd done with the study of the lack of herbicides and fertilizers. So they did a survey of all farmers because, they're getting ready for the planting season already, if you didn't know that. Machinery and equipment repair parts are difficult to find at best. They're putting 1960s and 1970s tractors back into the fields because they can't find repair parts. So you got $500,000 brand new, whatever, combine, anything that you would put out in the fields just sitting there idle. They don't have an extra tire for it, a rim for it, whatever it might have been. So then you got grandpa's old tractor out in the back that's still in good condition. Let's fire it up. Change the oil filter, look at the pistons, make sure it's working. Oh, 1965, here we go. Get the diesel burn right in the face off that smoke pipe. That's okay. The exhaust pipe goes right into your face in the 60s. It's all good. You can breathe that. But it was all about the availability. So they did this survey, and they ask all the farmers right now, are you having trouble getting and securing supplies? And 40% of them said yes. And of that 40%, 38% were saying fertilizer, 38% were saying, or was it 42% said fertilizer, 38% said herbicide difficulties. And if you're looking at a full 40% of all the farmers in America and Canada that cannot get their supplies, and these guys are super big buyers on the wholesale level as well, but their wholesale contacts that they usually would buy from are not even giving quotes now because they're not assured they can even get the fertilizer for the planting season. Now, last month, the USDA and all the rosy forecasts were coming out saying, oh, look for a 45% increase in fertilizer prices. But when we look today, it's more than double. And USDA was anticipating that 45% to go all the way through the planting season. And they're so far off the mark. They're about probably 10x off the mark. So some farmers are saying that, yes, fertilizer prices are going to go double, triple, quadruple, or 5x. And the USDA in its infinite wisdom said, hey, just switch over to manure. You don't need chemical fertilizers. But as you know, about 90+% of that's already spoken for. Farmers in the Southeast U.S. especially have gone into that because the EPA and Greenpeace and quite a few other organizations had, during the time when chicken farms and pig farms were just piles of manure everywhere, Himalaya-sized piles of manure was running into the waterways and causing algae blooms. So there was a lot of legislation and different things passed over the years, and almost every single ounce of manure is used in the fields now, directly sourced from the factories. Now I'm trying to get some mushroom compost logs right now because I have a registered farm. And if you don't have a registered farm, you're going to have a little difficulty getting fertilizer because you're competing with guys who have registered farms. And if you're standing in line in a co-op and I walk in front of you and I say, I got a registered farm, this person's just somebody off the street buying, they're going to push that person aside and they're going to give it to the person who has a real farm registered. Doesn't matter if it's operational. Doesn't matter if you're pulling thousands of pounds of fruit off every, couple hundred square feet in your orchard. Doesn't matter if you're planted out or not. You got a registered farm, period. That's all that counts now. So think about this for a second. They're about 38% down on the fertilizer. The rosy forecast was 12%. So I don't have the exact numbers of what the decrease is going to be in the fields, but when you don't put nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium and different types, potash, get the things growing in different stages of development during the planting to emergence, mid-growth, and then the final maturation stages, they require different levels of, fertilizer during each stage. Now, 38% reduction for 40% of the farmers equals how much food's not coming to the table. And then I want to add another thing on top of that. That's, I guess, subset A. Now, subset B is they won't have enough herbicides to go between the rows in the fields to prevent the competition of what is considered a weed, a plant. I think it might be medicine if you know how to prepare it correctly. It could be a wild edible, could be something that could be cultivated. Wild amaranth's growing quite a bit. They like to knock that down. But there's going to be an enormous amount of weed competition in the fields with the plants that they want to grow. Herbicides, if you think that fertilizer shortages are bad, it's just not caught up in the news yet what's happening with the herbicides. They're out. I know nobody likes glyphosate and Roundup and all that stuff, but they're out of that. And that's what they use for the Roundup Ready, soy, corn, GMO ready seeds. That is the majority, the lion's share of crops in Europe and the United States and Canada. I don't like it either. I like to go local if I can get a non-GMO product. And I'm still surprised in America they don't have to label GMO on the boxes like they do in Europe, because people avoid that with like it's a plague. But where we come with no glyphosate, they're trying to move to other herbicides, but they're not specifically for grass. Like grass is grass. And this is one thing I was learning doing this last couple of weeks here. Grass is incredibly difficult to eradicate, and it will grow just as tall, just as fast as the plants, like corn, for example, up to about 3 feet. If it's in a soy field, it'll actually eclipse the grass, or it'll eclipse the soy. And then it's going to get less sunlight and there'll be less yield. And then when they do harvest, you're going to have all this grass mixed in with things that you don't normally have. But those combines aren't set up to run through half an acre of grass and half an acre of dried vegetative material. They're just not set for that. So the way it's looking at it would be something like this. Herbicides are not going to be there, and you can do some calculations. The fields, this is for corn only. I don't have the soybean numbers. For corn, if you let the grass grow in between the rows, you lose 5 to 7 bushels per acre if it's called manicured, where they actually will go through with something similar to a lawnmower and cut it down. The root structure's still in there. If you allowed this, there's just nobody out there to tend for it, and it just goes to full height, full seed, you're going to be losing about 15 bushels per acre. So then you start to do the math across that, and then you figure out how much fertilizer is not going to be there, in addition to what the herbicide losses are going to be. And then you toss in the out-of-season cold weather, and then we are looking at the perfect storm here. Oh, and did I mention there's not enough farm workers anywhere right now to even get those bags of seed into the seeding machine. There are not enough workers out there to slice those bags open to get that into a broadcaster so they could set out the seed and the fertilizer at the same time. There's not enough farm hands to load the machines, not enough farm hands to harvest it. They're super thin on the labor. So what we look at is, I don't know, what do you think all that entails? I can just give the information, but my crystal ball is really not that clear. I'm kind of immersed in it where I'm too overwhelmed by what I'm seeing that I can't make a clear call right now. It's overwhelming for me to see this, really. Overwhelming.
It is kind of overwhelming, and I'm kind of glad you broke that down, because last week when we were on, I was getting a bunch of grief in my chat room about, people saying, "Oh, well, that's not gonna affect us. We know how to do this with our chickens and our cows." The problem is most of them were talking about small farms, and that's what they're having in their mind when they're thinking, I'll just grow food. And we're not even talking about people that have that are growing food themselves, that are prepped already, that are already living the lifestyle to where they could try to, cope with any situation that comes. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about the masses of millions, or 7.8 million people out there. I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm pretty sure that it's in the low tens of people that are prepared worldwide for any kind of scenario like this. So when we're talking about food shortages, we're not saying that some person that knows how to grow food is going to starve to death. We're talking about lack of food for the masses, which is actually the main dangerous thing. And I kind of wanted to point out some stuff that's going on right now, just to, kind of hammer that home. In China right now, they're doing, welding people in the residence again.
Again?
Food is going to starve to death. We're talking about lack of food for the masses, which is actually the main dangerous thing. And I kind of wanted to point out some stuff that's going on right now, just to, kind of hammer that home. In China right now, they're doing, welding people in the residence again.
Again?
To them, and that mass psychosis cannot take over a society in a matter of, let's say, 6 months. We saw it with the Germans. We saw it with the Imperial Japanese. I'm saying it's going on right now with, certain measures that our government are playing around with, and not just our government, but all the governments. So we're looking at, multiplying this, I'm going to say, epidemic of authoritarianism with the idea that they are the controllers of the mass amounts of food. They are the controllers of the economies, of who gets to trade with who, which borders are open right now. So just imagine, like, and I, if I'm not mistaken, you brought it up before, that if you live maybe in a country that imports almost everything, like maybe Japan or New Zealand or something like that, if your government decides to lock down all the way, you're in a real pickle. Now you have no access to outside goods, and you're left with whatever you've already accumulated, stockpiled, prepped, or whatever you want to call it. And I just wanted to point that out, that we're not talking about the, person that's level-headed and is paying attention to things, or generally even the audience of this radio show, but the masses of millions of people out there that have no clue that anything's even changing. As far as they know, this is the same fear diet that they're getting from the media. And the other day, I kind of did an experiment, and I went down the Microsoft MSN feed on several different feeds. And I'll tell you, it's set there to completely make you think things are at an end, things are gloomy, things are bad. So if you just go through the feed, you'll just hear murder, 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 kidnapping, 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 puppy, cute kitten, and then murder, 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 kidnapping, kidnapping. And it just kind of not just goes to show you that people are changing the way they think right now at this time. But I also wanted to point out a couple articles that kind of goes along with what we've been talking about, and I forgot to put it up for you guys.
Oh, could I throw a quick comment about China in there?
Yeah.
You're now forbidden from talking negatively about the Xi'an government handling that affair. If you put a negative tweet or their equivalent on Weibo, they will come and arrest you and take you out of your house and put you into the concentration camp too. You're not allowed to talk negatively about how the government's welding people in their houses and they're jumping off their balconies and starving to death and trading within their communities, which is quickly running out of food. If you talk negative, they'll unweld the door to come in to arrest you and then re-weld it shut. What a wonderful world we live in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That is crazy. But I fear that people are naive and they think that can't happen in the country that they live in. And I beg to differ. Like I was saying, you've seen how fast mass psychosis kind of takes over once everybody believes in the same thing. And I was reading these two articles right here. Study finds, and we've talked about this before, pandemic paralysis. Only 1 in 10 teens get enough exercise. So there's one. And if you can see the picture, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a picture of a kind of feminine, skinny male teen looking at an iPad, which if any of you have children of that age, that kind of, will tickle your funny bone. And then here's another one. Pandemic babies displaying developmental delays, even in mothers that didn't have the virus. Now, I'm going to throw it on out there that I imagine that most of these mothers may not have had the virus as far as they got counted for getting sick, but I bet they had something related to it. And I'll leave it at that because I was getting in trouble. But I bet all of these mothers, or at least most of them, that took part in this study probably had some kind of RNA disruption, I'll put it that way, in the recent time period that they're talking about, the pandemic babies. I am experiencing exactly the opposite. My infant is excelling at some stuff it's really kind of freaking us out.
Yeah, and you just have to wonder if governments already knew these food shortages were coming due to the grand solar minimum, and is what we are seeing as a supply chain disruption in the ag industry on purpose to do two things: to cover for the losses from the grand solar minimum, but at the same time accelerate the losses. Because I'm looking in China, and I understand from the last couple of years that they don't have enough food in that country to feed everybody. They say they have 1.5 years of stocks. But that's a lot of replenishing from all that they'd lost in the two massive floods over the last 2 years. You remember when they thought the Three Gorges Dam was going to overtop? It was within 10 feet of overtopping Three Gorges. So they let all the water down, and it basically flooded all the storehouses and all the croplands, and in cities it was 30 feet deep. So you got to imagine most of the supermarkets, warehouses, distribution points were flooded as well. But in China, never let a good rotted piece of corn go to waste. I mean, shoot, somebody will eat it. You got a bad social credit score, that's all you get. So I'm looking at the dovetailing a lot of these events here, thinking that, all right, if you could nix out the youngest of the generation just being born, you won't have to feed them. Parents won't be freaking out because they're not able to feed the kids, which is just such a nefarious, dark, unbelievably demonic way to look at things and operate. It's just like so far out of the scope of possibility of how do you even think or move like that through reality in this vibrational field? Like, what kind of dark energy is that moving through our frequency field? I mean, imagine the thoughts coming out of that thing on thinking on how to do this and then implementing it. Like, what kind of just wicked vibration comes out of that into our energy field here, into the unified field. And I think there's a lot of planning going on behind this right now because governments really had no option. There's 8 billion people. They swung the bat at global warming. A lot of people balked at it. Now it's truly unstoppable. I mean, we're just going to have to live through what we live through. We could have gotten on the ball 20 years ago and gotten everybody ready, family gardens, new ways to structure the economy, new ways to create value in providing food for people. But you can see already that was not on the cards at all as even one possibility. They meant to not have that option so people would be in the exact situations they are now. Now, if you didn't prepare, I'm sorry, you didn't prepare. That's on you. There's been so much warning for so long now. And it's coming down to, you got about 2 months max. But then, it's people who are ready for these things. Those that aren't ready are going to just behave badly. We see what happened in Kazakhstan, how quickly everything turned around. What happens there if there's something that, like you talked about that test today, what if it went live and then there was some sort of EMP that knocked out part of the country? I mean, people turn into barbarians in just days. And if they know you had food stocked up or you have medicines or you have whatever, so their kids can continue living, spoiled little brats, then they'll come and try to take your stuff. And I look in China and was reading these articles about, if you look at the organics of how people behave in a situation, the buildings started to trade amongst themselves, or somebody gave away an iPhone for a bag of rice. And I thought, yeah, that's about the price of it. Because at that point, how quickly it's breaking down in China and Kazakhstan, there's a lot to learn from that. These buildings get welded shut. A couple thousand people are inside. I lived in China for a while. Those buildings are massive, and it depends on how tall it is how many people are inside. You're inside your little cubicle, square box. But people be running up and down the stairwells trading. And these are the stories that people just organically came together and said, hey, somebody on floor 5 has an extra 5-pound bag of rice. What would you trade? Because they know they can't go marauding in the building because those people will get thrown off the floors for sure. It would be a vigilante justice type of thing. And that close, really close kind of thing where there's nowhere to run off to escape. Like you can't steal somebody's rice and then go to the 7th floor and then cook your rice and expect people not to break down your door and throw you off the balcony. No way. Because you're a threat to them next. And, the organization in a smaller amount of people takes care of itself. Move it out to a city of 13 million, you're going to get, somebody's going to take it and run. But when the buildings are locked shut and those people are in there and have to deal with the consequences of what they do, they start to cooperate versus fight. And I found that so interesting that they came together to begin trading. And so far, it seems like people are willing to trade what they're willing to trade. And Ransom I have said this how many times before? If you have something to trade, somebody will always find a counter trade for you. When you're trading an iPad for a 5-pound bag of rice or a brand new iPhone for a bag of rice, they didn't put the weight, then, suddenly you're starting to realize what's important in life and what's not. Now, I'm wondering after the event if those same people will go knocking on the door and go, hey, you got my iPhone. Can I buy it back from you or something like that? It'll turn back to the regular economy after this emergency situation alleviates. But I'm looking at a lot of things that could be happening in the United States as well. So will they scramble for stimulus? Absolutely, yes. People are going to be, I would say, no later than June. So here's how my forecast works out. The farmers are going to start talking amongst themselves about the shortages. And as we come into May and April, depends on where you are in the States, like in April, they're already planting down here in Tennessee. A lot of them wait until May just to be super sure, but there's an enormous amount that are already fully planted by mid to end of April. So you got to think around March, there's going to be a lot of talk. People talking in restaurants, farmers meeting for coffee, and the tourists are coming in, or people are just coming in, and there's a group of 8 of them talking about, damn, fertilizer shortage, we're going to run out of it. And then you got Jim and Bobby over there, and their 2 wives and the kids, and they're all sitting there waiting for their coffee, and they hear all these farmers talking about massive food shortages, and then it pops on the news, and they're going, no, remember those farmers, they were talking about that? We got to get ready. Well, it's going to all hit at once. Because all the water cooler talk and all the people that congregate in the mornings for breakfasts, the farmers getting up if they're not planting, everybody congregates for breakfast in certain areas. Now, these are also, there's going to be a lot of leakage of information and a lot of leakage through farming communities, and then others that know. Like I know people up in the city, and I could say, hey, you know what? They're running out of seed down here. They're running out of fertilizer. Oh, we're going to have hardly anything. I could get a forecast. But once that hits, so March through May is when that whole bevy of information is going to start tidal waving out and snowballing. And you're going to hear about it on the MSNBC News. You're going to hear about it on Drudge Report. Zero Hedge is going to run millions of articles about it. And you're going to look at all those other sites like strangesounds.org and what's the other, electroverse.net. They're going to start throwing out all these fertilizer and herbicide shortage articles, and it'll be bloggers, and then it's everybody. Now, see, when it's the everybody, our stores are going to be stripped, but the food's going to be really expensive by then, 2 to 3 times, maybe not 2, 75% to doubling. And there are going to be guards in every store. And those who can't afford the food are really going to nearly topple the government before the government reacts. And this is what I all see playing out by, say, no later than August of this year. The whole asking for money for food assistance will probably be about in June or July. You'll start to see massive movements across the cities. Not so much if you're growing your own food. If you're growing it, your main concern is trying to protect it. And I don't mean like sit in your basement for 30 years with a can of food and try to ride it out. I mean, get with your community so there's more just eyes, ears, and numbers to come and say you're not welcome here. You're not from here. You're obviously coming to steal or do something harmful to the community. You're just not welcome here. And leave it at that. If they try to push through, then that becomes a different set of variables, and you can deal with that when it comes to the time. But push them back to the curb. Don't let them in your fields. Get them off. Push them back to the road. Whatever. And help your neighbors. So many things going to happen. What's going to happen so fast, it is going to absolutely blindside the populace of the planet as to how fast it's going to happen. We are talking January right now, February, and in March it begins with the news just trickling out as farmers can't get anything, or way less than they anticipate. The farm inputs are going to rise. Tripling is probably a good average because the diesel prices are going up. And when the farmers are running 3x cost on inputs, guess what you're doing at the supermarket? Because there's only 6 companies that control all the food production in the world into a factory that comes into a box, a can, or a jar onto your supermarket shelf. Oh, and I should say in the cellophane wraps and that kind of thing in your refrigerated section, the yogurts and the milks and things, a lot. 6 companies control all of that. So if you think it's some sort of conspiracy where this thing's unveiled right now, the jabba dabba do, at the same time we're going into the food shortages, and then there's only 6 companies controlling all food distribution, but some of those same companies are owned by those who want to put out the pass and technologies associated with that. You can see one whole giant behemoth that's rolling right toward you, and it's all going to feed off itself, and there's a plan behind it. I don't know what they've gamed out. Perhaps, Ransom, you know what this whole thing is gamed out for. I just don't have the answer, but this is how I see it setting up here with what I've learned over the last couple of weeks. And Saturday I'll have a way better understanding of what the info flow is when I go to see the co-op guys personally.
Yeah, it would be interesting to find out what has changed, because I think we can agree that, energy, fuel, food, all of these things are going to increase in price. And I wanted to get your opinion on this prediction from supposedly investors to pull out your money of cryptocurrency altogether, but specifically Bitcoin. They're predicting it's going to crash in 2022. And then I wanted to ask you about, do you think...
Oh, how low? How low do they say it's going to go?
It says down to about 10,000. Tank as low as 10,000 or 7,000 euro. And I wanted to ask you, do you think this, coincidentally might have anything to do with all of those Bitcoin miners, like lots of them that were in Kazakhstan, and the fact that the U.S. is pushing so hard? And I know that might offend people, but we've been trying to do this for a long time, is to increase the amount of breakaway and the amount of power that Russia holds over some of these breakaways from Georgia to Kazakhstan, and all through the entire region, especially in the Crimea, which a lot of people don't know is actually the Russians' ancestral home. So it's like always been Russia up until they rechanged the maps recently. And now our government is pretending, and their government is pretending, that they're actually having proxy wars over these countries, when it seems to be like it's a back and forth manipulation of currency, food, and fuel.
Yeah, and that'll shake a lot of people's confidence in the crypto. So what would people move to as a structural asset value that's proven, rock solid, will never change? Like I say, structural, the base of a new money system, or the base of a money system to move from system A to system B. I mean, there's only so much gold out there in the world. There's only so much silver. I mean, how could you really do commerce with that? And I'm wondering if Bitcoin goes to 10K, like you get a bunch of put options right now, and then take physical delivery, quote unquote, take the delivery of the Bitcoin into your private wallet. If you strike at that price, like go down to maybe 15. If you're saying 10, then maybe be conservative and go 17 and put your strike in at 17. Not financial advice, but being up here 43, 44, that's a gigantic drop. You should get those contracts should be super cheap to pull up a bunch of those because those are probably way outside of what the call would be. Because I remember one time I took an $8 corn call and it was, $2.50 above, but that's when the massive floods were happening up in Oklahoma and all those grain storage facilities across the Mississippi all got ruined. Again, fictitious numbers coming out of the USDA. We lost an enormous amount of crops stored in the U.S. and what was being grown in the fields got all tore apart, and there was really low yield that year. So knowing you can grab a call that's super far out of the money, like I say, 16, 17, 15, however you want to go close to that, like I say, how many euro range, 10, you can get those for just pennies on the dollar, literally what you'd be getting a call for, like 10,000 down or 5,000 down. Those are really expensive. If you're getting closer to the money, they're really expensive. But if you're going to get something way out the money, go for it. I mean, not financial advice, but if you had a few extra bucks, those contracts, those option contracts, you can control an enormous amount of XYZ good for a very small amount of money. You got to pay the premium plus the contract price. So I don't know. What would you move to? That's going to shake terribly to the bone because everybody who's gotten into crypto, all the companies have gotten into it too. Institutional investors are into it. Billionaires are into it. Governments are into it, although they want to go central bank digital currency. But when it's that level of everybody's expecting the institutional adoption this year, and with that institutional adoption comes more news and then just the average person, like I'm speaking about. Think about the farmers being the institutions, and then once everybody hears about the farming difficulties, then it becomes mainstream. Well, it's the same thing. All the institutions are investing massive amounts in blockchain and cryptocurrency and payment systems revolving around that. So the mass adoption for what is expected. See, this is the thing. It's expected by every single person. Every single person out there, everybody who follows crypto expects 2022 to be the year of mass adoption from institutions, which will then set in motion this gigantic 1849 gold rush run into crypto. Now, if it crashes that low, everybody's confidence is going to be shaken in what's considered the rock solid thing. Because, the perception of crypto, it's rock solid outside the fiat system, right? And that's the thing you want to hold if fiat's crashing, and gold and silver and real estate. But I don't know where that would take us with that crashing that far down. I mean, imagine the amount. So that could make sense in one way. Because the institutional money wants to come in and swoop up all the Bitcoin on the planet. Because if they have it, then it can become its own central bank reserve currency itself within the companies using Bitcoin to settle debts or whatever. Imagine if Bitcoin's $10 million for one, then you could do portions of that and send it almost instantaneously to somewhere overseas. Forget the Swiss system. So if the price drops to 10,000, they could probably swoop up 20% of the rest of the world's Bitcoin because people will sell in panic, and then the others will lose confidence. Like, it's only 10. I only paid 2 for it. I'll sell it anyway. It's never going to work. But as soon as all that tumultuousness gets over with, it runs from 10 to 200 or 10 to 350, something like that. I don't know. I'm a fan of Chia and Solana. Bitcoin, yeah, it makes sense the markets would crash and then the swoop, and then the coffers are full by the companies and different countries that want to buy it. Then it can start off, and that institutions will have all the Bitcoin to base everything else off of, including a new monetary system with the carbon credit trading, the cryptocurrency, the gold and silver, and digitizing assets. Again, it comes down to blockchain. Digitizing a forest and give it an asset value as a non-changeable. So no humans will be allowed in those areas. They'll literally put a fence around them. Nobody in. We're going to value this, and then we're going to use this as kind of a bond against something else to issue that amount of new money in the new currency. So the Earth's going to be digitized, and that value will be also another pillar of that new monetary system. So, Ransom, I'm not sure really, but the BTC and the whole money thing is going to shake a lot of people. And then what happens if your food prices double, your cryptocurrency is 7-10x lower than it was, and people were expecting that to get by during these times a lot or ride through the next economy. They really put it into a pinchy situation, didn't they? Nasty little thinkers.
Yeah, they did. And, that's actually one scenario that I was thinking of, as that they would, kind of put a whole propaganda campaign to lose confidence in the cryptocurrency and make things crash, and then swoop up and buy everything. That would be the banks, the real estate companies, et cetera, the people that have enough money to mass purchase it, and then allow the price to go back up. And then, of course, they would control most of each of the cryptocurrencies. But the other thing I thought that might happen is, it seems like about the right time for a new or unpopular cryptocurrency to all of a sudden acquire a bunch of wealth being transferred from the Bitcoin owners over into the new one. And then
what's that one?
Go ahead and well, that's what I'm saying. What is it? We don't know. But it makes sense that they would have a way to transfer over the wealth to some other thing while they were crashing it. So that later they could just switch over and then buy it. And it's pretty much the same thing as you were talking about, as the banks pretty much buying it up so that they could use it as their own currency and control it because they own most of it. So that's kind of why I was asking it that. Actually, since I've been paying attention, and I'm not going to say I understand the cryptocurrency market or anything, but since I've been paying attention, it seems like every week that I get a bunch of negative reviews or bad, forecasts for cryptocurrency for one or the other, all of a sudden that cryptocurrency will start dropping right after those articles, but then it'll start going up in the following weeks when the article has been read and forgot about. So I really think that some of these groups are using propaganda it's kind of like the speculators with the oil industry and all of these other things. They're manipulating the want or the scarcity and making people scared to actually invest in it, until they propagandize that, like they did with the Shiba Inu, which I think was kind of a pump and dump right there. They put rumors out on that one that it was going to go up in price, and it sure did. I bought some and it went up. Since then, it's been dropping. However, if you knew that it was going to go up that day before and you took those articles at heart, and you say you dropped 20 grand or 30 grand or 40 grand in it, you would be, 100,000-aire right now if you would have sold it in the day after the articles were on the internet. So I see a lot of manipulation, and that's why I wanted to ask you about that. Are they poo-pooing on Bitcoin to drive the price down so that they could swoop in and buy it or transfer the wealth? And you kind of answered that.
I could give you a little bit more better answer if you. So I want to reverse everybody back to 2016 and 17. Now, if you're listening now, not a lot of people were into the crypto then. I knew a little bit about it because I was living overseas, and it was a bit ahead of the technology centers over in Asia. So I started to learn about this and heard about it 2016, sort of, learn more about it in 2017. At that time, coins that you thought were the most stable ever, that were going to be, what we understand right now is everything you think is going to be the stable moving through. The only ones that really survived through were the Bitcoin and Ethereum, XRP, which was the banker's token, but that has all kind of litigation going against it. They said they were selling a security, not a token. But it looks like Garlinghouse and the whole trial moving through is set to come to an end with the CFTC. That was a 25-cent token that is now taken completely off the market because it's going to be used as the banking instrument, interbank settlement. So the whole play there was people who believed in the XRP protocols, and then suddenly everything got frozen and they took it off all markets just last year. And whoever held that and didn't panic sell, well, that's going to be used as the whole thing. They're taking it completely off the market until I bet the reset happens and then XRP will be unveiled as the new banking medium instrument settlement, whatever you want to call that. And whoever's holding XRP tokens, you won't be able to buy them on a public market anymore, but they'll still have value, whoever held them. But so many of those coins at the time that were the leading edge of the leading edge of the leading edge on putting all the data on blockchain and speeding up transactions and being able to digitize contracts and immutable contract, everything you you could store your images, you could do a lot of stuff. And this was what it was the future. Everybody kind of saw it like, I could put something up there and it can't be changed. And even back then, censorship was starting to rear its head, and a lot of people were thinking about how to store data on the blockchain so it can't be changed. Well, the shipping industry got into it right away because they're like, you can't forge the documents on shipping manifests. So they started using it interport right away. So the ports were some of the fastest adopters of this tech because nobody could fake the document. You know how much fraudulent documentation there is in the shipping industry? Oh my gosh, lots. And the rail industry too. But those types of things. And then the law offices started picking it up. And then doctors started to use it for prescriptions. And then, now it's everywhere. You can get these secure documents, secure your documents, and put them on different protocols now where you can send and you can receive, but everything's not the easiest way to describe it is it brought in the unchangeable from one person to the next. You can really check it. It's got to be authenticated through whatever protocol. Now, see, here's the thing. This 6 or 7 cryptocurrencies that survived through until now, and like China Ibu, or I think that's how you say it, it was 0.0017 or something, where you could get for $1, you could get several thousand of those. But to put in 50 grand, like nobody's that speculative. Something that's that low of a token, man, the chances of it ever moving off of that are so slim and so none. You're just like, that was literally a 1 in a million chance that anybody got Shibu. And it went up that much. But then you could look back at things like Stellar Lumens, which had that same effect. And if you ever bought any Stellar or Digibyte, I mean, that stuff was 0.0001 way back in 2017 as well. But nobody was looking at those coins because everybody else was looking at the Ethereum, the Bitcoin, the BitConnect at that time too. And all those sort of quote unquote, I wouldn't say DeFi, but there was more like lending platforms. But almost all those coins and tokens disappeared. There's a very small handful that have any usage or value left to them during that transition from 2017. I'm saying the same exact thing's happening now, and things that you might think are rock solid, except for a small handful, 10, are going to pull through to the next and be still used, valuable, and increasing value. But those ones like China that were 0.00001 are the ones that are going to rise up into the single dollars or multiple tens of cents. Like it'll go to 30 cents from 0.00001. And if you had $100 worth of that, then suddenly you have $300,000 in your bank, But who's going to be speculative enough to go, put $1,000 on that one and that one and that one and that? Because there's thousands of them that are all that price. So you just don't know which one has real usability, which one is going to have functionality, or which one's just going to hit. Like whoever would have thought Shinu? That's a Taichen. It's a kind of a dog in Japan. It was a meme coin. And I can't believe that got so incredibly valuable. Oh, and I wrote a note while you were talking so I could remind myself. Proof of time is where people are moving to. Proof of time and space. So when you look at Bitcoin, you got to use all that electricity to mine it, to solve the mathematical problem, and then get the block and get the reward. That's energy intensive, and that's the whole reason, this demonization of crypto in the last year or two specifically were focused around energy needs. That's why so many of them went to Kazakhstan, because they were getting nearly free electricity. The government was inviting them in. So you see these places like Iceland too, but then Iceland had problems with its wind turbines, and they had to cut off electricity to industries because they didn't have enough for the people. So Bitcoin miners were one of those people caught up in the electrical rationing in Iceland. So when you look at it, and then it moved to proof of work and proof of stake, and we're kind of here now. This proof of stake is you'll take your coins like Algorand, which I think is one that'll definitely move through to the next round. Stellar Lumens, Algorand, Digibyte. Oh, Litecoin Cash. Don't forget that one. Not Litecoin, Litecoin Cash. It's already a full payment system ready. Somebody just needs to put the money in to get it up value and then start using it at a higher value. That's it. It's a fully functional fork off of Litecoin, which you can send super incredible fast money. So somebody could literally buy the entire network by just keep putting money upon money and getting it up to that rollover point where it goes from I don't know, 4/100ths of a cent all the way up to $40, and then it has real value in the behemoth of that actual blockchain. Then there's more value, and then people will come in and use it. But the Bitcoin, yeah, Ethereum, but the proof of time. Now this is the thing that's the newest. So proof of stake is you take Algorand. Yeah, sorry, let me backtrack. Algorand. The reason I was saying that, if you have a bunch of Algorand, you stake it, or you let the community in the blockchain itself verify that you hold that, so it shows that there is value. So you got to stake it on the network, that I have this much and I stake it. I'm not going to use it today, tomorrow, whatever. And I'll leave it in there as a running total of how much is on this network. And then you give me a percentage of that. And then they kick you off the same amount, whatever the percentage is in the same token. I prefer to take the Algorand, because if they're going to pay me an Algorand, I think it's going to go up in the future. Not financial advice, just the way I'm seeing how payment protocols work in the crypto space. But proof of time is where it's going to be. So those proof of stake, now if you think it's a solid proof of stake coin or whatever, you can buy those and then stake them. And as it's moving forward into the next thing, you keep accumulating interest being paid in those coins, not dollars, in that same coin that you believe in is your interest paid in that same coin. So if I like Algorand, they're going to pay me an Algorand. Thank you very much. I got more Algorand. I still believe it's going to be one of the new ones circa 2022, 23, after this whole thing works out, maybe 24. But the whole thing about the electrical usage with Bitcoin and everything, like it's inefficient. So then it moved from proof of work, and now it's into staking, and now proof of stake. And that's kind of why I got to that. But here's the new one, proof of time. Use almost no electricity on it. And I'm getting somebody on here who knows more about Chia, and then Solana is a different protocol. But somebody I know is going to come on and explain to me Chia, how it works. It's supposed to be the next Bitcoin. Price is being suppressed because they were mining it, pre-mined it, and they were saying the price is being suppressed currently, that it's going to be, as you understand, not financial advice here, not at all. I'm just saying what I was told by somebody else who knows about the project way better than I do, that the price is being suppressed from around 1,100 down to 100 right now. And this is going to be the equivalent of what the new Bitcoin will be, because it's running off a proof of time, and they're going to put the value in it. It's just a money. Just like Bitcoin, what is it? Store of value. Chia, store of value. But it's working on proof of time, not proof of work. So the electrical demand is going to be far, far less. And the way they can distribute that faster, so the transactions happen faster, is literally light years ahead of what that original Bitcoin was. So you know how things like to move faster in the digital world, and everybody that's into crypto and central banking and business, they want things to move faster with no fees. Well, I should say very, 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 very minimal fees, which I don't even mind paying. And then the other one you're going to look at is Solana, because it is on the same proof of time. Problem is, you as an American can't really buy Chia here. You can get Solana, but you cannot get Chia. And you see how everything's moved and ebbed and flowed. So, Ransom, what do you think? I mean, you're delving into this space now. Which coins, aside from Bitcoin and Ethereum, Litecoin, and say XRP, you already know those are going to move through to the next round. They've already proven themselves in the middleweight fight. So they're going to the next round. So which ones do you think are the new ones, or which do you know that you think might make it through, that you've heard of, or you think there's some usage in it, or you think there's usability somehow in some industry? I'd like to hear your answer, if really, because I'm curious which ones you see as the next ones, or you know about, because what you say is the ones that are going to pass through. And I guess he's going to have to give us an answer right after this break here. Coin Market Cap, maybe you want to check that out if you're looking for crypto prices. 2 minutes and 2 seconds. David Devine, your host. Ransom Godwin here tonight, too, from 420 TV, Freedomist Films. We'll be back in 2 minutes, and let's talk about the future moving forward for next.
Listen to Revolution Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Are you interested in the paranormal, murder mystery, real natural law? Do you enjoy interviews with amazing guests? Then join Crypt Rick every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Revolution Radio. Studio A, freedomslips.com. Crypt Rick's I've been thinking. Welcome to the crypt.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Welcome back for the second hour of Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm David Dubine, and right along here with me tonight, Ransom Godwin, 420 TV Freedomist Films. Revolution Radio Studio A, every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Glad you're with us. If you enjoy free speech, consider a donation to the station to keep the running costs and production smooth so you can enjoy this information. You know, even YouTube had banned talking about cryptocurrency, and I don't know why we're not allowed to discuss a new technology. So Revolution Radio is going to let me talk about it. Thank you very much. It's worth a discussion. And, you know, if you're going to put advertiser dollars somewhere, money, consider supporting the station here. Now, with that said, Ransom, before we went on the break there's only going to be a certain amount of cryptocurrencies that are going to move through after this reset. Because I'm looking at the numbers here, and I am shocked that it's dropping so much in the last 7 days. It's incremental. We're like 5% this day. So after this next shakeout, I'll call it a shakeout, because that 2017-18 shakeout shook a lot. Even the ones that you thought were rock solid during those ICOs, which is the initial coin offering back then, you were allowed to do that. Can't do that now. It's considered a security by doing that. That's why XRP is still battling with the CFTC, because their money, they're going to move through as the banking coin. So that's one that's going to, as it shakes out, that'll be solid. So what I was asking Ransom before we went on the break there, aside from like Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe Solana, XRP, and Litecoin, which ones did you know or hear of? Because those very well might have legs, since it's more making what you're talking about more talk. And I'll put Algorand on the list too, and Stellar and Digibyte. Anything for me, Ransom? Hey, welcome back for the second hour.
Yeah. Actually, it was funny that when you were talking about Solana, I had it up on the screen already looking at it. I was kind of showing people the options you have on Coinbase, and like you were talking about, you can't buy XRP, which a lot of people told me to buy before it went up recently. So it's been doing good. And actually, out of all the things I bought like 20 different cryptocurrencies, threw a couple $100 in, hoping for that future of, at least one of them would do all right versus only losing a couple $100 on them if they never really did anything. But I've been watching this Decentraland Mana, and it's been steadily going up. It's actually the only one that if I would have put more money into it, I would have quite a bit of income now. And it kind of went up this year. But other than that, I mean, I really don't know what backs these, but I do know one thing. I know how to look at a cycle. So I'm here on Coinbase, and if I click all, on Decentraland here, it started in 2018 here, and it really wasn't worth anything until it had a little bump, and then it skyrocketed.
Like 3 cents or something, I believe it was. And then it went up to over $5, if that's the same one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. It's got the little pyramids, but I actually think that this one's going to do good simply for the name, just simply because they named it. So people are going to be, shopping around, and I'm sure they've heard this or that, and they may have various reasons for buying cryptocurrency, but one of them is privacy and decentralization of these centralized banks. So these people were brilliant in naming their cryptocurrency Decentraland and Mana, which is, a blessing from God. But anyway, I go through these and I look at their overall, what have they done always? And the pattern actually for most of them, including all that you've pretty much said. So we'll go back up to the top cryptocurrencies. You got Bitcoin, and all you have to do is click on this and say you don't know anything about it, and you click all, you can see the entire track record of Bitcoin all the way from March of 2004 to when it hit its big bump and everybody got excited, December 18th of 2017 there. And then it kind of went up and down where people were making money and losing money and making money. But then it just shot up to, as a lot of people know, and then it was worth like 59 or 60,000, close to $60,000 each. Now with the Shiba Inu, like I said, it may be going down now, but I've noticed that I forgot what the other one is, Dogecoin, which is kind of like another little joke. Every time it goes down,
that's right.
Yeah, every time that one goes down, Shiba Inu goes up. It's kind of like linked together. And I've noticed a lot of these are like Cardano. It's kind of linked to Ethereum and Bitcoin. Whenever they go up, the other ones go up. So I don't think that I think there's going to be another big boom. And I actually think that, like you were talking about, there's so many people that are just now kind of, jumping on the bandwagon of what is cryptocurrency? Can they buy it? Can they put their money in there? And I wanted to point out this also as USD coin. I put in like these are experiments to me because I don't know anything about it. So you could drop like $100 in USDA coin and then just sit there, and I think I've made like 3 or 4 pennies of interest off of it. But imagine if you're actually putting your money that you usually keep in the bank in there. You put $100,000 in there, you just got $2,000 for nothing in a couple months. You know what I mean? So it's obviously with anybody that can add or subtract. And so here's mine. I'm going to show everybody. Here's mine.
And now that's provided you can find an exit in your fiat currency and then not get taxed on every transaction as you're coming out into probably a stable coin that could be traded for fiat, or somebody who would trade you directly for that fiat money to get your coins, and then you just do the transaction on the wall and they hand you paper money. You know, those two variables.
Yeah. And I was showing the audience, I'm even allowing them to see how much money I have in this experiment, because I kind of started it on my YouTube channel, and I told them. So I invested $1,672 into it in June of 2021, the first cryptocurrency I ever bought. And that money now it kind of went down a little bit in the past couple of days, but at one point I had $5,077 made off of that $1,000 from just buying $100 here, $100 there, a little more on some of them I thought, like Cardano and stuff like that I thought would be better. But as in, you know, I'm sharing it right here online for everybody. They can see that this, well, say you had more than that, say instead of only $1,000 like me in my savings, you know, you put $100,000 or $200,000 in here if you could actually afford that. The amount of money that you would have made right now, you would already have, let's see, quadrupled almost your income right there. And this is with stuff going up and down constantly, as you can see from the graph. And that's just me not knowing anything. I've already made, let's say if I cashed it today and I needed it, there's $4,000 or $3,000 I made in profit right there. But at some point right there last week, like I said, it was more like $4,000 because it went up past 5,000. My initial investment. So to me, that doesn't know anything. That's pretty good, you know, odds. And this is with all of the turmoil that's been going on with the cryptocurrency all year.
Yeah, it's that point of getting out as well. You just got to wonder, because Ethereum, remember when it was around 2,000 and then it dropped all the way down to like 1,400. That was just, I'm over here on Live Coin Watch. It's a different one from Coin Market Cap. The coloration's better for me at night on that one. livecoinwatch.com. And if I look over to the last 12 months, it did drop down, and it was the same thing. Dropped down to around 1,700, 1,800 from that same higher price, and everybody was super scared. It went from 38, 3,900 down to, yeah, about 1,930. And then it dropped a little for 1,800. So it went from, literally halved itself from right around 39 all the way down to 1,800. So it looks like it maybe, if it does another one of those, you know, but how many people will that spook? And that money will move out. I don't know. It seems like it is just doing a trajectory higher. Like the next highest peak will be above that, far above that, 9,000 on the next peak after it shakes itself out here a little bit. If it does that halving of what it had, let me see. I was trying to find the date on that. Yeah, back in February of 2021. It wasn't too long ago.
Yeah. See, and then say we put this scenario. If anybody's been paying attention to the news at all, you know that China and Russia have made deals to kind of, be teammates in a way, even though they're secretly adversaries of their own. But China and Russia military cooperation raises prospect of new challenge for American power. That's at the Wall Street Journal right there. But then we can just go on and on. China harvests massive data on Western targets, including its citizens, businesses. Now, you can just imagine what this data is going to be used for. And then, you know, at the same time, we go back to people starving and being welded into those people's area. And then skip over here, Taiwan. troops simulate urban warfare with China because I think that they're about 99% sure that they are going to be invaded within the year or next year. And, China's openly denying that they're not making nuclear weapons, which makes me think that's silly and that they are. Now, imagine all of these things happening and then the dollar is worth nothing. There's no food at the store. And then whatever happens, maybe they ceasefire or a new Cold War starts, whatever the case may be, whichever avenue they're taking. But then all of a sudden, all these cryptocurrencies are the only standard way you can do business with people around the world anymore. And you can imagine that your wealth may, and I'm just saying may, be exponentially more wealthy just for the simple fact that you owned it during the transition into the whole new system of world government, cryptocurrency, and you being tracked, traced, and located at all times. And people don't think that that's true, but all of our devices now are keeping constant track of you, and the governments want to keep track of that cryptocurrency, which tells me they inevitably will, and in that case, they can control it. So I don't think they have a problem with transitioning. With all of the articles I've read about the International Monetary Fund, it's been their goal for quite some time to go to a centralized cryptocurrency in the first place. It's just which one is going to be the one that, kind of gets picked, or is the battle of the franchises, so to speak.
Maybe we're going to have to use this because you see over in Israel, you can't even use your phone with the Vax Pass on it to order takeaway food with contactless delivery. It's just, I call a restaurant somewhere in town, like a Uber Eats, brings it to my doorstep and leaves it. They have all the protocols done. You can stand 10 feet out the door. I want you 20 feet from my driveway. Okay. And you're still not allowed to order food without showing a green pass. Now, that's absurd. And then in Canada, it's happening too, where they're not letting farmers, even though they're not delivering by hand themselves, they get drivers to come. How do you think they take away all these thousands of tons of grain? This guy's not just putting it in his trunk and then driving it down to the granary. The person who owns the farm where the produce comes from, if they don't show the green pass, they're not even allowed to sell their grains into the market at all. So you see there's going to be a black market or some kind of parallel market at the same time that's going to operate outside the fiat money system, where people can't transact in that system because they're getting locked out of it out of choice. No green pass, no access to the banking. Well, some people might say, I'm going to just go and hang out in the crypto crowd or other parts where people want to stay more anonymous that use, and worldwide too. Why would you pay the bank SWIFT system to send money? $20 here, $20 there, stealing $40 to do the same thing that these cryptocurrencies can do for like 25 cents. But they want to charge you $40 or $60. Oh, it's stuck. It's bounced back. We have to charge you twice for the fees. It's probably an algorithm of how many times they can bounce a transaction where they can grab another $20 fee, multiply to how many people, and how often you can implement the algorithm or implement that move to grab another third or another 30% on that bounce transaction for that customer. Ooh. So people are going to move out of that system because they're tired of getting scammed by the central banks, tired of getting scammed by the interest. Legal theft of your money, 2% per year. Yeah. Well, how much of the legal theft is now? Like, there's very little left of a dollar, like 1 penny left of a dollar since the Federal Reserve in 1913. It's been devalued so much, 70's off the gold standard, and now we're left with like 1 penny of value in the whole dollar. And this inflation that we're seeing now is going to strip that last penny. We're going negative. People are going to say, all right, if I can move over to a crypto world where it's really possible now with different kind of credit cards linked to the cryptocurrency, you can spend it. Problem is, what is that one card? I'm not an advertising for them, but it was crypto.com. I read into their terms of service because I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting concept. I wonder if I could get a credit card and use some crypto. It's actually a debit card. So whenever you swipe it, whatever the transaction or the price is, and you can determine your coin to put against that. It could be Bitcoin, could be Ethereum, whatever. You load it in there. When you swipe it, it does a transaction for you against a stable coin at that second, and your thing's paid for in the store, and that swap was almost instant. But then every time you do that, if you're a U.S. citizen and you had made money, you have to pay tax on every single transaction every time you use the card. Every time. So I thought that was not a very good solution, because it's a taxable event. So then every time you swipe your card, not in addition to, what you consider fees from Visa or MasterCard, but the actual capital gains from the transaction that it swiped through. So maybe it was $100, but for the purchase price of whatever item it was, but you made a 10x on that. So then you're looking at what? $90 of, and then you'll have to do capital gains of $20 on top of that. 20% of that 90. So no, maybe it's $18. So instead of spending $100, you really have to spend $118 because every time you swipe the card, you need to pay the capital gains tax if the crypto you're using in the card had gain value. Not an unrealized capital gain, but a realized as soon as you swipe it, they know exactly where it came from. That's the thing about blockchain too. Like they can trace that transaction back, know exact day you bought it, what the value of it was compared to when you swiped that card and it exited the trade for you and pulled that much. Okay, it's a done deal. You made this much. Now you owe the capital gains on it. But see, I'm a little irked at like a 2% service fee on a credit card to use it. But 18% fee for a capital gains swipe, you must need the money real bad. But maybe to have it as an emergency. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, see, this whole idea, I mean, they pretty much have it this way when you use credit cards, banking, et cetera, that your identity is so linked to your finances. Once they get this down to the point that they have a system where your medical, and all of these different platforms of information that regard to your life, like your property, your medical records, your identity, and all of your legal papers, and all of these things that you have to show the government. And the reason I say that it's going that way is you can see from the pandemic that government offices are closed. And I don't think it's because of the pandemic. It's been a long time coming where they don't like these kind of town hall meetings. They don't like you to be able to go down and pay your taxes and, tell them your grievance in person, or whether they own the municipalities. But at some point, they're going to bind your identity and your finances so intertwined. And I think this is coming soon. And this is kind of where the cryptocurrency comes into it, whether it's government backed, that they came up with, or you're still trying to use the other ones, is that you'll be so tracked and traced that you won't even be able to do things like hide from them in the way that, right now you may think, I don't want to participate in that whole mark of the beast system, and I'll just stay at my house and, I'll just order stuff online with my regular banking. At some point, you're not going to be able to do that because they're going to be intertwined so much that you won't even be able to pay your municipal bills, your taxes, and these other things in person. It'll all be done digitally, and most likely with whatever cryptocurrency that the new system is agreeing on that they're going to be using. So that's kind of scary, because then you're at that point where they're turning you off as a citizen, basically, for not complying. And then you're just that, mountain man out there on the property that didn't pay his taxes. And we all know what happens at the point, if there's still a functioning government, when you don't pay your taxes. Or worse yet, it continues to go down to a communist path, and where they're just showing up saying that your property is their property and you haven't paid your party fee through the digital system. Kind of like I'm using China for an example, because people like Kissinger and Brzezinski and all of these people, including Soros, have all said in the past that this is the way of the future, a capitalist communist society, not unlike the Chinese Communist Party. Now, that is a nightmare in my mind, but it seems to be an inevitable end with this pandemic. And I'm sure you've seen all of the articles that are trying to link these pandemic mandates, rules, and the way of thinking, and cross it over to the climate control, which will factor into your paying the bills again, once again, and your taxes on your property, because they'll be saying you'll have to comply to these new environmental rules to make sure that you only are using your allotted CO2 per person. And in other words, they've been trying for a long time, like with the carbon credit system, to make it somehow able to tax you literally for breathing on the earth. And now they've put in this medical tyranny, and you can see how those will link up very shortly.
Yeah, if you look at Kazakhstan, the loss of electricity, their banks are down and there's no ATMs and no online banking because the internet's down in the country. But that's one of the things that people always would say that didn't really understand crypto too much is, well, if there's a power outage, your crypto, you won't be able to do anything with it. But at the same time, your credit cards, your debit cards, your ATM withdrawals, and you're actually walking into the bank to do anything, and the internet access to even access banking in another country of an overseas account, it doesn't work either. So the whole thinking about how an economy could shut down where it doesn't work, then what would people do? Because think of Kazakhstan. Okay, you might have your crypto and you might have your bank cards and this, that, and the other, and that's all of us, credit card, whatever. And if all that goes down, none of your money is going to be accessible at all. And that would include crypto too. But then a friend of my sister who was a manager at a chain of supermarkets, when we talked about, yeah, if your computer systems are down, would you take cash? Like if it was $1.70 and I gave you $2, would you still sell me the product? And he's like, absolutely not. We would close the store because everything's computer managed for ordering, and that much stock disappearing would throw the biggest wrench into everything moving forward ordering. They'd have to count everything by hand again and whatnot. It sounded like a nightmare. Somehow the whole computer system would be completely skewed. So he's like, nope, we would just lock the stores. So it wouldn't work then either. So then what's your next? Without an economy, what would be a tradable as money? Forget the digitals now. It's all gone. You can't even trade paper money over for food in a lot of the supermarkets. So again, your fiat paper money would be no good. So what does it leave you? Gold and silver. I know a lot of people that would say, I don't want the fiat, but I will take the risk for that hand of silver or piece of silver or piece of gold, but they will never take the risk for the paper money. Well, something like that in the hand, if you're in that kind of breakdown situation where they're closing the supermarkets because there's no electricity, the entire city or part of a country or whatever, nothing, at that point, they're going to be going, yeah, I'll take the silver, I think, or the gold. But then what's Ransom? What's something else you think would be a tradable in that time? You got medicine, okay. Coffee, yeah, but how long did it really break down? I don't know. So I'm just looking for a list. What do you think would be a good one? Beyond the money now. We need to trade something beyond money. We're going to go value for value like they were doing in the buildings in China. Bag of rice for whatever somebody is willing to trade for it. So what are those tradables? Can't be money. Can't be money. It has to be anything else other than money.
Yeah, well, obviously, if you had stockpiles of medicine, and I hear a lot of people talking about that, about stockpiling silver for finance in the case if that we had to do a barter system, knowing that silver and gold are always going to be money, and whatever system comes back will still, be able to interact with gold and silver. But if you had,
that's a good way to put it.
If you had silver, though, you could make colloidal silver. The only problem with that is people would know that you had silver because you were trading in colloidal silver. You know what I mean? But anything that people want, and I would say that vices are one of them. Liquor, for one. I mean, that would just be a straight up trade, a bottle of liquor. People like their liquor, plus it has its values for morale reasons, excuse me. But I was thinking literally, things that you could grow, you could just press into blocks, like let's say marijuana for one, let's say oats for another, let's say what's that purple amaranth? You could just go on and on with some of these ancient grains, and just if you've had tons of seeds, you can press them together as food blocks, or straight up seeds that that people don't have because they didn't save them. Like if you don't have food, you're not going to have seeds. Like if you just decided, oh, here's a tomato, I'm going to start growing that. You could do that, but what are you going to eat with that tomato? You know what I'm saying? So people with all of these different kinds of seeds have endless bartering potential.
Seed. Yeah, and thank you for reminding me of that point. For those of you that have listened to us in the first hour, thank you for continuing and spending your valuable time to listen to what we have to say, to join the conversation. Time is value, and that's why proof of time is going to be the new protocol, wrapping into that. But in that first hour, we were talking about the fertilizer shortages and also the herbicides. So if you have the chance to go down to your farm co-op, and this is what I wanted to say, the farm co-op, you can buy bags of seed, 50-pound bags. You can also get fertilizer in 50-pound, 40-pound, 30-pound bags. Now, if you go to Home Depot to get an equivalent of a 30 pounds of a fertilizer, it's going to be 5 times more expensive, maybe even more. So if you're going to need that much fertilizer, do not go to a Home Depot or Lowe's or something. You got to find in your own county, there will be a farm co-op. Guaranteed. Every county has one across the United States, 100%. And if they don't, drive the next county. It's like 20, 30 minutes between them. They kind of did a grid, so each one's about 30 minutes or so driving from the next one. So you can find one. Open to the public now, but I am absolutely assuredly telling you that as we move into the grow season and planting season, you will not be able to get that seed if farmers are coming in to buy it, or the fertilizer, or the pesticide, or the herbicide. Whatever implements are needed in farming, get priority and precedent to anybody else out there that wants it, because everybody understands they need it now. So go to your co-op and give it a look and see. And if you're talking about, the seed here, Ransom, 50 pounds is a lot of seed. You have no idea how much wheat that is. And then you can get non-GMO wheat. You can request that. Different kinds. Even have heirloom different wheat, so depending if they know a grower around the area. But you can grind that into flour. But then the flours are tradable as a food too, but which one's more valuable? Yeah. I know some of those ancient grains are not very available in the co-ops. Now, co-ops will have a lot of stuff like sorghum, oats, like you mentioned, rye, winter rye grasses, these sort of things. Soy, of course, and like the clay peas and iron peas. But beyond that, to get the spelt, like I haven't really seen a 50-pound bag of spelt. And if you get the amaranth, I would get the organic amaranth from a supermarket for like those 5-pound bags. But to find ancient grains is sort of difficult. Sorghum, although that's pretty well grown in the States, but amaranth, I don't see anybody really growing that too much commercially in the States. Spelt either, huh?
I was even thinking this magic painted corn that I got from the Oppenheimer Ranch, that's supposed to be genetically mixed with all of the Native American tribes' corns, would be worth a lot to people because it's drought resistant. It can grow in the cold. It can grow in the hot. Things like this. You're right about that certain things just wouldn't be worth anything to people except for to eat it right away. I mean, like they couldn't take it home and start growing it if it's too far away from where you live. So you would have to have seeds not only for food, like I was talking about, making blocks of seeds literally, and you can make that in different ways, like add honey to it. It's basically a big granola bar, but that to people that don't have anything or don't grow anything and they still have something to trade that you might want, I could see that being quite valuable to people. And then a bag of seeds that they could actually take with them and grow in their environment would be, gold. I mean, and not to mention, let's not forget that with the trends of worldwide, and I'm talking worldwide, laws and things like that about self-defense, self-defense systems, I'll put it that way, those are going to be gold. I mean, literally like gold blocks, I'm going to say in 10 years. In 10 years, if you have a good collection of self-defense systems, those, just a trade with that would change someone's whole life, from hunting to protection, depending on how bad things got. And just the fact that you have them and they're not available makes them gold blocks. So not just that, but other things that are not going to be manufactured and someone may need, including excess tools and things like that. That's all money. That's all gold. So like, it kind of always reminds me that when I see, an old poor mechanic, he looks poor and whatever, but he owns this little shop. But if you look in there, there's $100,000 worth of tools in there.
Yeah, and on the farms too, you might roll by and go, "Oh, it's just an old barn," but inside there's like $5 million of equipment. People don't understand the price of this stuff to get the food to your table. They really don't. Really not at all. There's a huge disconnect there. And I might mention handles for those tools too, because I've noticed tools that I buy at estate sales, it's usually coming from an older family. A lot of those tools, have the original handles on from way back when, 70s, 60s, 80s, whenever they bought those things. And when you start to use them vigorously to really go out and do a bunch of work to get an area ready to put your garden down, those older handles break. So they can easily be replaced with newer handles, hickory handles. But who's thinking about the time to whittle one of those down, and even using a skill saw by the time you get that, super long rectangle and you start whittling it down and that sort of thing? It takes a little bit of time, even with some woodworking tools. It's going to take you, it's a good skill to learn to whittle a whole handle down, because think about how straight handles are. They're really time consuming to do. So if you can go buy a bunch of wooden handles, like if you're out in farm country, there's people that go around usually on the weekends, and you'll see them at the places where they might have a cattle auction, or somewhere around an Amish farm, or some downtown area where they're baling hay or whatever. I don't know. They just turn up where there's a lot of activity going on, where people would be interested in buying wooden handles. They're like dowsing. They just know where everything goes on, where their people might be. Where Saturday, you got to go to the market down here. They're going to be selling a whole bunch of used stuff and having sort of an animal sale too, and then a whole huge handles is not what people are thinking about for those tools. And any tool you can scarf up at an estate sale, any tool, any old tools, because those old tools way back when were made with solid steel. I mean, I have used so many and broken so many bits, and not even doing that incredible amount of building, just putting together tables and shelves and things from scratch. But I mean, it's not that torque consuming, if you will, for all those screws. I've gone through so many bits, but the older tools always seem sturdier, have a better quality, and they're way heavier, and they were meant to last a lifetime, where these now are meant to break. So if you can get anything from the old days out of an estate sale, it's meant to last a lifetime, not like today's stuff. So whatever you can get, and estate sales are incredibly cheap too, for certain items. If you get there and you find something that's usable, I always go for the tools and just hand. I found a hand grinder. You got to do it by hand. Hand used tools, different kind of saws. This is the thing. Whatever you can find for a tradable, you're right, tools, because tools at estate sales are real cheap. And if you start getting tools, you might think right now, oh, there's tons around. Everybody's gone down to whatever it is, Northern Tool, and bought everything. There's millions and billions of widgets laying around. Well, they're going to break in the modern day. I don't know. Get the seed. You're right. So that's my advice. This weekend, if you're able to get out to a co-op, go buy at least 200 pounds of fertilizer, maybe 10-10-10. You want to get the 4500, which is nitrogen. You want to get some phosphorus and sulfur as well, so you can deal with some pests and leaf disease too with the sulfur. And see how it is interacting with the farm co-op. And buy that kind of bulk, and then see what it weighs. See what 200 pounds of stuff weighs coming out of there. 50-pound bags of fertilizer, 50-pound bags of seed, multiply it by what, 4 or 8, and then get that out to your car and load it up and see what it just feels like to move that weight 8 times. Now do it 700 times, like the guys that need to do the planting in the fields that need to go by each bag and rip it open if they didn't buy in bulk in just a single container. You're spreading seed the whole day. You're ripping those bags open now. 8 of them, what would that do to you to really feel it? But then multiply it by 100. And you'll see the behemoth that lies before you. You got to get a little weightlifting in on those 50-pound bags. So please do that. Go this weekend to Farm Co-op and at least buy 200 pounds of something there, whether it be 50 pounds of seed and 150 pounds of fertilizer, or 150 pounds of seed and 50 pounds of fertilizer. Go test it out. You're going to need the stuff, and that's going to be a tradable, and you could grow a massive, massive, massive garden if you have fertilizer that's not pure chemical.
I wanted to add to not forget books. Books and in certain circumstances are like blocks of gold too. So anytime, if you were living in a situation like that and you're cut off from internet and all of these other things, you're going to run into problems that you've never come across before. And thank God that we're not in the Stone Age, because we actually have the ancient world to look back on. And I know we were talking about trade, but trading books, trading knowledge, like, I have a book on making a house out of a tree or whatever, could be something that is a necessity at that time. Now we're thinking for people obviously like us, and I kind of want to roundabout about what I mentioned before about everybody's, kind of saying, oh, well, you're, kind of fear porn and this and that. All we do is talk about scenarios that are very possible in the world we live in. And we show articles to back up what we're talking about, that these are the trends that are going on. It is true that supply distribution and chains are shrinking. It's true that the world's governments, and including China, and I would imagine secretly the United States, are hoarding food right now. It's true that there's shortages from one end of the market to the other, causing all kinds of these little, throwing cogs, stopping the whole machine, so to speak. And I've already been seeing this in real life. So kind of a question I have for you is, one, how bad would it really be when you can, you add all these factors like you're talking about in that are going to affect us in the near future, but then you add the couple of years of retarded growth and the shutting down of the economy that we already had, especially from moms and pops. Now, I know that kind of threw us off of trading, but this is a real scenario that I think that people are going to actually have to deal with at the dinner table by the end of this year. It may be small at first, and they're thinking that they'll just be tough and get through it, but trends tend to last for quite a while. So once the authoritarians are used to having the control that they have now, I don't see them relaxing those controls. I just see them replacing the reason for why those controls are still in place. And that brings us back to the food issue. How do you think the government is going to respond to, co-ops and things of this nature, and farmers and people kind of leaving the city in a way before things get too bad, and start their own economy in exactly that way? Like, are they going to start, making regulations that citizens that don't own farm animals can't shop at these places? Because I've already seen a trend of that happening here in New Mexico, where I've seen that these feed and supply stores, the co-op stores, the veterinarians are no longer selling certain items. And we've talked about that before, certain medicines to the public, unless they can prove that they have a farm animal. Now, what if this trend continues on to all of the resources that people think that they're going to start getting before things get too bad, still in the prepping phase, which I think is kind of coming to an end, or the window's kind of closing for that. But say they took your advice right now and they all started going out, say, 100,000 people nationwide went out and bought large quantities of grains, fertilizers, medications, and none of them own farms or have animals. How do you think the federal government would respond to that? And do you think that they would, rapidly make new mandates and laws to counteract that?
Well, I'm looking at it in a slightly different way, that the governments would want self-sufficient communities to start off because that's less people that have to deal with. It's a different way to segment the society further, and then it's another way so all those resources could be focused right in the cities. Like, people know that, again, it's almost like a grandparents' generation. Like, most of the older people who prepped are the old ones left on the planet that understand what we are still looking and saying there's a huge problem. This is being stolen, these rights we used to have, and just the way the freedom that you did have before of choosing what you wanted to do is 100% eroded at the moment, I would say. Not in 100, 98. But things are changing, and allow them to focus on the cities. The older generation, if you're over 50 to 80, you were like our grandparents were when after they went through World War II. They were the super strong generation. Everybody else, it's going to be too much trouble. People are too focused. They're so used to the rights that they have and have had, grown up shooting with BB guns, being super young, and that kind of, scaling it up as you get older, going out to the forest, looking for different animals. That's the kind of resistance they understand that would be out in the countryside. And just people would say, I don't want to participate in your system. I don't even want to. I don't want to participate in it. Just walk away. We don't want to have anything to do with it. And they understand there's going to be mental resistance getting in to try to turn everything at the exact same time. Because you got to think that'd almost be like a battle on two fronts, or at least three. So how would you refocus the resources? Well, yeah, you would say, get out to the communities, get out, and then that's going to be a whole second segment that they would control later. Now, when that later is, after 2030, I'm not really sure. Because you got to look at it right now. What's the total percentage of population that's living out in the countryside that is sort of self-sufficient with exactly I described to you? Of the entire population in a country, 5% maybe, 10 tops. Those other 90% over there, eventually they'll come and swoop up to 10% after 2030 or something.
So how much on because I kind of was referring to like the Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2020 that they had, those are quite old now, actually. But in there, they talk a lot about how they would restrict farmers. And we've actually seen a lot of that, I think, in the last couple of years. And that's kind of the direction they were going when we saw people, turning over their crops, destroying their cattle, destroying eggs, milk, etc. These are all little like weird regulations that farmers and ranchers were dealing with or doing because they either got paid better to do that or it was some kind of regulation. How much do you think, like, what's the camel that will break or excuse me, not the camel, the straw that'll break the camel's back on all of these ranchers? Because when you really realize how much ranchers own, farmers own, even the ones that are semi-industrial still may have a family that kind of owns the land and is either contracting it out. They still own large portions of the United States. And kind of what you would see if they wanted to, the people, if they were organized and smart, they could just cut off all of the areas around them, including the corporations, where there would be possibly some kind of confrontation. And you know how the government seems to back corporations more than they back the average rancher is kind of where I was going with that. So I do agree at some point they'll leave when they really pull the plug on the Great Reset and the population starts declining, they will absolutely depend on people to kind of cultivate things while they manage the decline of society. So I do agree with that. But like, you know, how many, how far do you think ranchers and farmers are going to go? And I'm talking more on the bigger commercial scale, are going to put up with what they know is destroying their own businesses, you know, like not producing, letting their lands continually be poisoned and depleted of things. I mean, like, at which point do you think there's a mass awakening as far as the agricultural culture, not the industry, but the culture of people and land across America? Is that, if that makes sense?
It does, and I was looking at it at a completely 180-degree opposite, knowing that what that strength or that weakness might be is by me perceived as a possible strength in their favor. So let's say you were talking about them roping it all off. I'm going the other direction where it would be collectivized by the government. What they have going for them, it's so large and it's so complex that they really couldn't even get anybody in there to replicate the work of that farm. Because those families have grown up there 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. They know the land. They rode horses when they were kids. They played outside. They know every square inch of the property, even if it's 1,000 acres. They've been all over it. And then all of a sudden you get some people from a blue state, plop them in there and say, all right, you all are from name XYZ city. You're not going to take care of this farm. It's big, so there's 500 of you. Now go.
That's scary, because that's
scary. See, that's why that they wouldn't collectivize the land, because they know they couldn't do that. Look at what happened in China too. I mean, and you can look in Cambodia too. It just doesn't ever seem to work that way. They can never collectivize anything. Zimbabwe as well. Never can collectivize the agriculture back to what it was in private hands. Now, whatever way it got into those private hands, forget that. That's not the point. See, they always try to interject other junk in on top of the point. But the collectivization of a farm in any country, when it's done, not by the people who care and love the land and their passion is to farm it, when it gets into other hands and other, say, techniques, it just doesn't work. It falls apart. So when they say, go take back your land, okay, we took it back. By the way, we can't grow food. We don't know how to grow food. Can we ask them back, do you think? Sheesh.
That's exactly kind of where I was going with that, is if the kind of culture of farmers and ranchers didn't fight back initially when things start changing, I absolutely think that's where our government, amongst almost all of the governments, are going to collectivize for the world need these farms. And that's exactly what they've always done, is take the people off the land for whatever, you know, made up problems that they have. You know, they've made up all kinds of reasons to remove people and say that they don't have a claim on their land. But once they do that and they collectivize these farms, we all know what's happened in the past. They never output good or enough for the masses. And, you know, and that's kind of where we're at. And that's kind of my point. So now we're on a global scale of the Cultural Revolution, where we kind of know where this movie goes. I mean, the governments take over. They start mandating and governing everything. And then what comes next is the acceleration of the food shortage that you're talking about now, before it's completely converted to that thing. And then you know that it'll be exponential at that point. And there's only one answer that government has ever come up with to fix the problem of food shortages and masses of people, and that is to demonize one group of them and get rid of them. And that's the scary, you know. If you've been paying attention to the things going on right now, you can see that there's more complex kind of scheme doing that exact thing right now. We're in the early stages of the propaganda, I would think, but they're going to increase that propaganda. And in kind of the area that they're attacking is the landowners, ranchers, farmers, and I might even say Christians, because that is the group that most likely feels like they are patriots and most likely believes in the Bill of Rights. They're most likely the ones that wholeheartedly believe in property rights. And that's where you get your civil war and excuse to collectivize everything, saying that these certain group of people are a terrorist or whatever they're doing. And on January 6th, you know that there is a movement in our government right now to do that exact frame up.
Well, in the grid down situation, you're going to read more because hopefully you have a way to charge your batteries for all of the LED lights so you can run less power. You're going to be reading at night. You're going to be reading. You're going to need brighter light at night to read. So let me give you my book collection here. You know, we're talking about tradables. Here's the books I have on my desk right here that I just got over the holidays. Aboriginal Sites on the Tennessee River, Graham Hancock's America Before, Atlas Shrugged, Ancient America, The Divine Blueprint, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, and the Nephilim Chronicles, a travel guide to ancient ruins in the Ohio Valley. But right here in my hands, also a gift, autobiography of Nikola Tesla and other works. Very nice. All the diagrams and every single invention he'd ever done right here in a 700-page book. I'm going to start at page 292, single circuit self-starting synchronizing motors, dual phase electricity, synchronous with that of a generator, but not a generator. So think about these devices we've had and all this fighting that's going on in LAC that there's not going to be enough power to do the agriculture for the year. Free energy devices. They even show you the patent on page 295, the full working schematic back from the 1800s. Now we should have this free energy to be able, so we don't have to go through these situations, that we don't have to experience this. It's all because of the energy, which should have been free. And now you see how the world revolves around the control of the energy and everything political and military. It's sickening. But you see where it's gone to. Now it's doing the same with the medical. And it's like, okay, all this is based on energy, lack of energy. If you had free energy, free transportation, the world would be very, very different. You could grow anything abundantly forever because you had all the electricity you could ever possibly use. So you could crank the lights up and you could crank up anything you wanted to input faster. But you dial it down because you got to pay for it. If it was free from the Earth's magnetic field, you could do whatever you want. No energy would cost anything. Ransom, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Any last thoughts? We just have about a minute left here. I'll let you close it out. David Dubine signing off. Mini Ice Age Conversations.
I guess my last thought is that people might want to change their thoughts of, kind of being naive that things won't happen, and think about some of the stuff we talk about. And, as I've said before, if just one scenario kind of incorporates something in your life, it's best to be prepared for that. And if you don't get what I'm getting out of all of the occurrences in the world, I don't know what to tell you, because this is obviously the Great Reset. And my kind of question is what will be the thing that they use for the excuse to unite, as far as like a reason why we have to have a world government? Maybe we can talk about that next time. I think it has something to do with the governments of the world hiring religious figures to help us transition to the new lifetime of realities, which I believe they're going to try to convince us that there is a bigger government than the world government, and we need to all do our part and take our jabs and eat our Soylent Green, which, by the way, was in 2022, and Johnny Mnemonic. Here we are, just as they predicted.
Nah, it's all about the food. You don't eat, you die. That's why you want to get your gardens up now. Go to the co-ops this weekend. Talk to somebody that produces food in your area. See if you can buy something out of season. Because right now, farmers markets are super easy to go to in the summer. But can you find something now in the off season? Who's still producing? Who still has the eggs? Who's growing the cold weather vegetables, whether it's the cabbage or the kale, arugula lettuces? This time of the year do really well. So where can you go find produce outside the supermarket system this time of the year? There's still apple cider. Apples were in season. Still some pumpkins around because those were just picked last month and at the end for November, Thanksgiving. Like there was a lot of really heavy produce that can last you through the entire winter. Now, can you get on that cycle of buying all those pumpkins in December? Head off to your farm co-op. Ransom, thank you for joining me tonight. Ag time. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
What have I become?